She gave me a weight loss supplement at my own wedding, called me a monster for serving steak, and then kidnapped my daughter for her own good. When I asked her what the hell she was thinking, she smiled and said, "You're lucky I didn't take her sooner." I didn't say a word. That was 5 months ago. My sister-in-law makes me understand why men hate women. I first met her at my wedding reception, and her gift was a weight loss supplement along with a gift card to my local gym. She insisted on handing it to me in person instead of putting it down on the table. "This is for your well, she proudly exclaimed before pinching my stomach. Thank me later. Well, my husband had already warned me about her and told me that she was pretty horrible to every girl she met, so no matter what she says, I shouldn't be surprised. But in the weeks after the wedding, she kept spamming me with photos of her vegan meals on WhatsApp, along with a paragraph of the benefits of cutting out meat. At first, I would reply saying I appreciate the advice, but I was going to continue to be an omnivore. That's when her messages took a turn. "Oh, okay, so you just love culling animals, huh? I hope your future daughter enjoys being birthed by a murderer." By that point, even my husband supported my decision in blocking her number. Fast forward to 6 years later, our baby Lucy was born, and we'd been shielding her from my SEL. But it was my mother-in-law's 85th birthday, and she was hosting a barbecue for the entire family. Quite frankly, me and my husband figured that it might be one of her last birthdays, so we decided to go and introduce Lucy to everyone. I was hoping my SEL wouldn't be there since it was a literal barbecue, but of course she showed up with an "I love being vegan" t-shirt. When Lucy ran over and begged to be lifted up, I watched her like a hawk. Luckily, she did lift her up, and they played with her Lorax soft plushie that she brought everywhere with her. Lucy was quiet as usual, but there wasn't a single person there who didn't receive at least one hug from her. And to avoid my SEL who was criticizing me and my MIL for eating victims who had been helplessly unalived, I tried to spend the day with Lucy, and we made daisy chains in the front garden together. And after an hour after we finally threaded together a daisy chain tiara, my SEL came over to me and started screaming. I felt my face become wet with her saliva. "You effing heartless bitch, how could you have carelessly ripped those souls out of the soil like that?" She was then interrupted by my male dragging her inside the house. I watched as they did breathing exercises, and was just grateful that the rest of my husband's family was sane. When the food was done, we all gathered around the table outside. The entire garden was filled with laughter and cheerful chatter, with our only problem being a few mosquitoes that kept landing on our arms. Well, that, and my SL. Whenever any of us tried to swat them away, she would launch into a speech about how even mosquitoes deserve to live, and I guess she noticed all of us ignoring her, because when I went to slap the one on my arm, she grabbed my wrist so hard I thought it would leave a bruise. Those are living beings. They're just trying to survive. And whenever I went to put food in my mouth, she would say something like, "Fat and heartless, pick a struggle. I'm literally a size US 2 BTW. And when she saw Lucy on the other side of me eating steak, she said, "This is what happens when Kaylers raise children. They teach them violence." That's when Lucy, who was only 6 and hadn't said more than hello, looked up and said in her tiny voice, "Auntie, why do you care so much about mosquitoes and animals but you're so mean to mommy?" There was radio silence. My husband's mouth was gaping open, but Lucy wasn't done. She had that look kids get when they're on a roll with what they think is just interesting information. "You said mosquitoes and animals have families and feelings. Doesn't mommy have feelings too?" My FIL tried to interrupt with something about checking on the pie, but Lucy had found her momentum. "My teacher says people who are mean to other people but nice to animals are just pretending to be good. Is that why everyone secretly hates you?" My husband stopped chewing. I froze up, trying my best not to burst out laughing. My SEL tried to recover, but it was over. My beautiful daughter had won. Lucy calmly went back to eating like she hadn't just delivered the most brutal takedown in family history. The rest of lunch, perfectly peaceful, until the next day, because when I went to pick Lucy up at school, I couldn't find her anywhere, and when I asked her class teacher, she told me her aunt had already come to collect her. I asked her teacher if she said anything else, and that's when her voice turned high-pitched, as if she was extremely confused. Yeah, she said she didn't want Lucy to be raised by cowlers anymore, or something like that anyway. I pinched the bridge of my nose. I immediately grabbed my phone and called my husband while running to the school office. My hands shook as I dialed, nearly dropping the phone twice before getting through. He picked up on the second ring, and I could barely get the words out between gasps. "She took Lucy. Your sister took Lucy from school." The silence on the other end lasted maybe 2 seconds before I heard him slam something down and keys jingling. "I'm leaving work now. Call the police." But I was already bursting through the office door, startling the secretary who spilled coffee on her keyboard. "I need to speak to the principal immediately." Someone who isn't authorized picked up my daughter. The secretary's eyes widened and she buzzed the principal without asking questions. Within minutes, I was in his office explaining the situation while he pulled up security footage on his computer. We watched the grainy video together. There was my sister-in-law at 2:47 p.m. showing the substitute teacher something on her phone. The teacher nodded, looked at a clipboard, then nodded again. My SIL gestured urgently, pointing at her phone repeatedly. The substitute teacher glanced around, seeming uncertain, but then walked over to get Lucy from the playground. My daughter ran to her aunt with her Lorax plushie bouncing in her hand, clearly happy to see a familiar face. "She showed old family photos," the principal said, rewinding the footage. "Look, you can see her swiping through them on her phone. And here, she's making urgent hand gestures." The substitute noted that she claimed there was a family emergency with a grandmother. I slammed my palm on his desk. "She's not on the pickup list. How did this happen?" The principal shifted uncomfortably in his chair and pulled out a folder. "You're right, she's not. We'll be conducting a full review of our pickup protocols. But right now, we need to focus on finding your daughter." That's when I remembered Lucy's iPad. We'd installed Find My iPhone on all our devices after Lucy left hers at the park last summer. I pulled out my phone and opened the app with trembling fingers. The little dot showed up immediately, pulsing on a street about 15 minutes away. "I know where they are." She took her to her apartment. The principal offered to call the police, but I was already heading for the door. "My husband's on his way. We'll handle this." I sprinted to my car, throwing myself into the driver's seat and peeling out of the school parking lot. The whole drive there, I kept checking the iPad's location, terrified the dot would start moving to somewhere I couldn't follow. My husband's car was already in the apartment complex parking lot when I arrived. He was standing by the building entrance, talking rapidly on his phone. When he saw me, he hung up and grabbed my shoulders. I called my brother. He's inside trying to talk to her. She won't open the door. We raced up the stairs together, taking them 2 at a time. Outside Syl's apartment, my brother-in-law Nathaniel stood with his ear pressed against the door. He held up a hand when he saw us, whispering, "I can hear Lucy crying. She keeps asking for you." I pushed past him and pounded on the door. "Open this door right now. I want my daughter." From inside, I heard my sister-in-law's shrill voice. "She needs to be saved from your toxic parenting. I'm protecting her from a lifetime of cruelty." Through the door, I heard Lucy's small voice getting louder. "I want my mommy. Let me out. I don't like it here." There was shuffling, then the sound of another door slamming. Nathaniel pressed his ear to the door again. I think she locked them both in the bathroom. My husband pulled out his phone. "That's it. I'm calling 911. While he spoke to the dispatcher, I kept talking through the door, trying to keep my voice calm for Lucy. "Sweetie, mommy's here. Everything's going to be okay. Can you hear me? Mommy!" Lucy's voice was clearer now, like she was pressed against the bathroom door. "Auntie won't let me out. She keeps trying to make me eat weird green stuff and I don't like it. She threw away my snacks." I heard my sister-in-law shriek in the background. "Those weren't snacks. Those were processed poison. I'm trying to deprogram years of carnivore indoctrination." Nathaniel had been quietly working on the front door lock with a credit card. It clicked open just as we heard sirens approaching. We rushed inside to find the apartment in chaos. Vegan propaganda posters covered every wall. The kitchen counter was littered with raw vegetables, some half-chopped, others scattered on the floor. Lucy's Lorax plushie lay abandoned on the couch. The bathroom door was locked from the inside. My husband knocked firmly. Sis, the police are here. Open the door and let Lucy out. We can talk about this calmly. No, you're all complicit in murder. I won't let you corrupt her anymore. My SEL's voice was getting more hysterical. Lucy understands now, don't you, sweetie? Tell them about the poor animals. I want to go home, Lucy wailed. I want my mommy and daddy. You're scaring me. 2 police officers arrived, taking in the scene quickly. The female officer approached the bathroom door while her partner took our statements. Ma'am, this is Officer Chen. I need you to unlock this door and come out with the child. There was silence for a moment. Then my SEL's voice changed, becoming artificially sweet. Officers, thank goodness you're here. This is all a huge misunderstanding. I'm just spending quality time with my niece. The bathroom door unlocked and swung open. My SEL stood there with her hands on Lucy's shoulders, her fingers gripping too tightly. Lucy's face was red and puffy from crying. The moment she saw me, she wrenched away from her aunt and ran straight into my arms. Mommy! She wouldn't let me leave. She kept saying you were bad and that eating meat made me bad too. I held Lucy tight, feeling her whole body shaking. My husband knelt beside us, wrapping his arms around both of us. My SEL stepped out of the bathroom, smoothing her I love being vegan shirt and putting on a bright smile. Officers, as you can see, this is just a family disagreement. I was simply educating my niece about nutrition. Officer Chen wasn't buying it. Ma'am, did you have permission to pick up this child from school? I'm her aunt. I don't need permission to spend time with family. My SEL's voice was getting shrill again. Besides, someone needs to intervene when a child is being raised in such a toxic environment. The officers exchanged glances. The male officer stepped forward. Did you falsely claim there was a family emergency to remove the child from school? My SEL's face went red. It was an emergency. Every day she spends eating murdered animals is an emergency. Her parents are teaching her violence. Lucy pressed her face into my shoulder, whimpering. She made me watch videos of animals being hurt. I didn't want to watch, but she held my face. My blood ran cold. My husband stood up slowly, his jaw clenched. Even Nathaniel looked shocked. That's enough, Officer Chen said firmly. Ma'am, you need to come with us to answer some questions. But before anyone could move, my phone rang. It was my mother-in-law. Her voice was strained when I answered. Dear, I heard what happened. Please, can we handle this as a family? I'm on my way over. Don't let them arrest her. We can work this out. I looked at my SEL, who was now ranting to the officers about how the dairy industry was the real crime. Lucy was still trembling in my arms. Every instinct told me to press charges, to make sure she never came near my daughter again. But my husband's face was torn, and I knew how much his mother's opinion mattered to him. We'll wait for your mother, I told him quietly. But this isn't over. My mother-in-law arrived 20 minutes later, looking every one of her 85 years. She took in the scene. The police, her daughter surrounded by vegan posters, Lucy clinging to me like a lifeline. She walked straight to my sister-in-law and took her hands. Sweetheart, what have you done? Mom, I was trying to save her. My sister-in-law's eyes filled with tears. You don't understand. Every time I see Lucy eating meat, I see those innocent animals suffering. Someone has to protect them. My mother-in-law led her to the couch, gesturing for the officers to give them a moment. She spoke quietly to my sister-in-law while Nathaniel explained to the police that we would handle this as a family matter for now. The officers agreed to file a report but held off on arrests, warning that any future incidents would result in immediate charges. After they left, we all sat in my SIL's living room for the world's most awkward family meeting. Lucy stayed in my lap, playing with her Lorax but listening to everything. My mother-in-law suggested family mediation, maybe some counseling sessions to work through the issues. We're family, she kept saying. We can fix this with love and understanding. I wanted to scream that love and understanding didn't include traumatizing my child, but my husband squeezed my hand. One session, he said quietly. We'll try one mediation session for Mom. My SIL agreed eagerly, too eagerly. Something in her eyes made me uneasy, but I was exhausted and Lucy needed to get home. We left with promises to meet with a family counselor the following week. That night, Lucy had nightmares. She woke up 3 times crying about animals being hurt, about her aunt locking doors, about not being able to find me. Each time, I held her until she fell back asleep, my anger growing with every tear. The mediation session was scheduled for Thursday afternoon. We arrived to find my SIL already there, looking perfectly composed in a business suit instead of her usual vegan propaganda wear. She'd even put on makeup and styled her hair. The mediator, a soft-spoken woman named Dr. Martinez, had us sit in a circle. For the first 20 minutes, things seemed productive. My sister-in-law apologized for frightening Lucy, admitted she'd overstepped boundaries. She spoke calmly about her passion for animal rights and how she sometimes let it cloud her judgment. I started to relax slightly, thinking maybe this could work. Then I noticed her phone positioned strangely on her lap, propped against her purse at an angle that faced me. The screen was black, but something felt off. When Dr. Martinez asked me to share my perspective, I spoke carefully about boundaries and respect for parenting choices. My SEL kept adjusting her phone, and I saw a tiny red light blink. She was recording me. I shifted in my seat, angling my body away from the phone while continuing to speak. My SEL's fingers twitched, adjusting the angle again. Dr. Martinez was taking notes, completely unaware of what was happening. I just want what's best for Lucy, I said carefully, watching that red light. We all do. My sister-in-law nodded enthusiastically, her hand creeping toward the phone again. This time, I leaned forward and knocked my water bottle off the small table between us. Water splashed across her lap and phone. Oh, I'm so sorry. I grabbed tissues from the box on Dr. Martinez's desk, making sure to thoroughly soak the phone screen while appearing to help clean up. My SEL's face contorted with rage for just a second before smoothing back into that fake concerned expression. The rest of the session continued without incident, but I knew this wasn't over. My SEL agreed to respect our boundaries, promised to ask permission before any future interactions with Lucy. Dr. Martinez seemed pleased with the progress. My husband looked relieved, but I saw the calculation in my SIL's eyes as we left. 3 days later, my phone started pinging with notifications. My cousin in California had tagged me in a Facebook post asking if everything was okay. Then my college roommate texted asking about Lucy. Within an hour, I had dozens of messages from extended family and old friends. My SIL had posted edited clips from her water-damaged phone to our family group chat and social media. The audio was garbled, but she'd added captions that made it look like I was saying horrible things. I don't care what she wants became captioned as I don't care what Lucy wants. My comment about boundaries was edited to make it seem like I was keeping Lucy isolated from family. She'd crafted a whole narrative about being a concerned aunt worried about her niece's well-being. The posts were carefully worded to seem reasonable to anyone who didn't know the full story. She shared articles about childhood nutrition, statistics about processed foods, photos of happy vegan families. Each post ended with something like, I just want what's best for my precious niece, or families should look out for each other. My husband called his mother immediately. She was confused by the posts, but admitted several relatives had already reached out to her with concerns. My sister-in-law wasn't answering her phone. When we drove to her apartment, her car was gone, and her neighbor said she'd left with several suitcases that morning. The damage was already spreading. My husband's aunt called him at work, lecturing him about how families should support each other. His cousins started commenting on the post with things like, this is so sad, and I hope they work this out for Lucy's sake. People who'd never met Lucy were suddenly experts on what was best for her. I spent hours trying to do damage control, but how do you fight a narrative that's already taken hold? Every time I tried to explain the real situation, it sounded defensive. My SEL had positioned herself as the reasonable one just trying to help, while I looked like the difficult sister-in-law keeping family away. Then Lucy's school called. The secretary's voice was cautious when she asked me to come in for a meeting with the principal. My stomach dropped. When I arrived, the principal showed me printed screenshots of my SIL's social media posts that someone had anonymously dropped off that morning. We're not making any judgments, he said carefully, but we need to ensure all our students are in safe safe environments. These posts raise some concerns about family dynamics that we need to address. I explained everything: the unauthorized pickup, the police report, the mediation session. The principal nodded, taking notes. He pulled out Lucy's file and made additional notes about my SIL not being authorized for pickup, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. The posts had done their job. Over the next week, my sister-in-law escalated her online campaign. She started a blog called Advocating for Lucy, where she posted daily about children's rights, nutrition, and the importance of extended family. She never directly accused us of abuse, but every post was crafted to plant seeds of doubt. She posted old photos from family gatherings, circling things like Lucy eating hot dogs or drinking juice boxes with captions about processed foods linked to childhood behavioral issues. She shared studies about the benefits of plant-based diets for children, always adding comments like, "I wish all parents would consider this research." My husband tried calling her repeatedly, leaving voicemails that started angry and gradually became pleading. His mother was caught in the middle, fielding calls from concerned relatives while trying to maintain peace. She kept insisting this would blow over if we just gave it time, but I knew my SAL was planning something. The social media campaign was too calculated, too strategic. She was building a case for something bigger. The answer came 2 weeks later when Lucy came home from school with her backpack stuffed with pamphlets. Her teacher hadn't noticed someone slipping them into Lucy's cubby during recess. They were all about choosing kindness, and friends don't eat friends, with graphic cartoons of sad farm animals. Lucy was confused and upset. "Why did Auntie put these in my backpack? The cow looks so sad." She'd recognized her aunt's handwriting on a note attached to one pamphlet that said, "For my smart niece who asks good questions." I marched back to the school with the pamphlets. The principal was alarmed. This was a clear security breach. They reviewed the playground cameras and saw my sister-in-law at the fence during recess, talking to Lucy through the chain link. She'd been there every day that week, they realized, always during the busy recess time when teachers were spread thin. The school implemented new security measures immediately. They assigned a staff member to monitor the fence line during recess. Lucy's teacher was instructed to check her cubby regularly. The principal assured me they were taking this seriously, but I could see the exhaustion in his eyes. My SIL was making everyone's life complicated. My husband finally reached his breaking point when his boss pulled him aside at work. Someone had sent anonymous emails to his company raising concerns about an employee who might be dealing with family issues affecting his judgment. The emails referenced the social media posts and suggested the company might want to ensure their employees maintained stable home environments. His boss didn't take it seriously, but the fact that my SIL had tried to jeopardize his career sent my usually calm husband into a rage. He drove straight to his mother's house where his sister was supposedly staying. She wasn't there, but his mother admitted she'd been coming and going at odd hours, always with her laptop, always looking intense. That night, we installed security cameras around our house. The very next morning, they captured my SIL spray painting "murderer" across our garage door at 3 a.m. She was wearing all black and had clearly planned to avoid being seen, but hadn't noticed the new cameras. We called the police immediately. This time, we weren't letting family pressure stop us. The officers took our statement and copies of the footage, but when they went to question my SIL at her apartment, she had an answer ready. She claimed I had staged the whole thing for attention. She showed them receipts proving she'd been at a 24-hour vegan restaurant with friends at 3 a.m., friends who eagerly confirmed her alibi. She suggested I had hired someone who looked like her, or had doctored the footage. She even cried, saying she couldn't believe I would go to such lengths to frame her. The officers were skeptical but had to investigate all claims. They took the footage for analysis. Meanwhile, we had to pay to have our garage door repainted while fielding more calls from relatives who'd heard about the vandalism and my SEL's claims that I was framing her. My mother-in-law came over that evening, looking older than I'd ever seen her. She sat at our kitchen table while Lucy played in the living room, far from our conversation. "I found something," she said quietly, pulling out a notebook from her purse. It was my SIL's journal, left behind in her old room. The pages were filled with increasingly frantic writings about saving Lucy. There were detailed plans, research on custody laws, printouts about grandparents' rights, notes about which family members might support her if she sought guardianship. One page made my blood run cold. She'd written out a timeline: build public concern, 2 months, document evidence, ongoing, file report when ready, emergency custody, final goal. Below that were notes about which lawyers specialized in rescuing children from unfit parents. My mother-in-law's hands shook as she showed us page after page. There were drawings too, disturbing sketches of me portrayed as a monster, of Lucy crying behind bars made of meat, of my SIL as some kind of avenging angel swooping in to save her. I didn't want to believe it. My MIL whispered. I kept thinking she was just passionate about her beliefs, but this is beyond anything I imagined. My husband flipped through the journal, his face growing darker with each page. There were notes about every family member, who might be allies, who was complicit, who could be swayed. She'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. "We need to take this to our lawyer," I said. My husband nodded, already pulling out his phone, but my mother-in-law grabbed his hand. "Please," she said. "Let me talk to her first. She's sick. She needs help, not prison." I wanted to scream. Her daughter had traumatized Lucy, tried to destroy our reputation, attempted to sabotage my husband's career, and was actively planning to take our child. But looking at my MIL's desperate face, I understood. This was still her daughter. "One day," my husband said firmly, "you have 1 day to convince her to get help. After that, we're protecting our family." The next morning, my mother-in-law called to say my sister-in-law had agreed to meet with her. They were going to have lunch and talk things through. She sounded hopeful, said my sister-in-law had seemed receptive on the phone. But while they were meeting, I got a call from Lucy's school. My SIL's ex-boyfriend, someone we'd never even known existed, was in the office claiming to be Lucy's uncle and asking about volunteer opportunities. The secretary, thankfully well-trained after recent events, had stalled him while calling me. I raced to the school to find a man in his 30s sitting in the office, filling out volunteer paperwork. He looked up when I entered, and his face went pale. "You must be Lucy's mom," he said, standing quickly. "I'm dating her aunt. She said the family was really involved with the school." The principal appeared beside me. "Sir, I think there's been a misunderstanding. We'll need you to leave the premises immediately." The man looked confused, but gathered his things. As he left, he muttered something about my SIL saying this would be fine, that families volunteered all the time. I realized with growing horror that my SIL was recruiting people to help her, expanding her network of surveillance on Lucy. When my MIL called later, she was crying. The lunch had been a disaster. My SEL had spent the entire time ranting about how the family was enabling child abuse, how she was the only one who truly loved Lucy. When my mother-in-law showed her the journal, hoping to shock her into realizing how far she'd gone, my sister-in-law had grabbed it and run out of the restaurant. She screamed that I was betraying her. My mother-in-law sobbed that I was choosing murderers over my own daughter. I've never seen her like this. That evening, our security cameras alerted us to movement in the backyard. My husband checked the feed to see my SEL creeping along the fence line, trying to peer into Lucy's bedroom window. He called 911 while I made sure Lucy stayed in the living room, distracted by a movie. This time, the police found her still on our property, crouched behind our shed with a camera. She'd been taking photos of our house, our cars, even Lucy's toys visible through the window. When they arrested her, she screamed about documenting evidence of abuse, claiming Lucy was malnourished and neglected. At the police station, she demanded they test Lucy for nutritional deficiencies. She insisted they'd find proof of our crimes. She'd brought a folder of printed articles about the dangers of meat consumption in children, highlighting passages and scribbling notes in the margins. We filed for a restraining order that night. The judge, reviewing the police reports, the school incidents, and the security footage, granted it immediately. My SIL was ordered to stay 500 feet away from Lucy, our home, and the school. But even that didn't stop her. She started showing up at places she knew we'd be: the grocery store, store, the park, the library, always staying just beyond 500 feet, always watching, always taking photos. She'd recruited a small group of extreme vegan activists who believed her story about saving a child from carnivore parents. Lucy started having anxiety about leaving the house. She'd cling to me at school drop-off, asking if Auntie was watching. She stopped eating properly, afraid that any food might make her aunt angry. The very thing my SEL claimed to be preventing, Lucy's relationship with food being damaged, was happening because of her actions. My husband's brother Nathaniel stepped up during this time, often accompanying us on outings to watch for my SEL. He'd grown disgusted with his sister's behavior and publicly sided with us, which led to her adding him to her enablers list. The situation reached a breaking point when Lucy's teacher called me during work. Lucy had locked herself in the classroom bathroom and wouldn't come out. When I arrived, I could hear my daughter crying inside, saying she saw her aunt at the window and was scared. There had been no one at the window. Lucy was now seeing threats that weren't there. My SEL had successfully traumatized my child to the point of paranoia. I sat on the bathroom floor, talking softly to Lucy through the door until she finally unlocked it and fell into my arms. That night, my husband and I made a decision. We were done trying to handle this with kid gloves. We compiled everything, every post, every incident, every piece of evidence, and took it to both our lawyer and the police. We wanted criminal charges for harassment and stalking. We wanted the restraining order violation prosecuted. We wanted our daughter to feel safe again. The lawyer was blunt. This is one of the worst family harassment cases I've seen. She's escalating, and it's only a matter of time before she tries something more drastic. As if to prove the lawyer right, 2 days later we received an official visit from Child Protective Services. Someone had filed a detailed report claiming Lucy was malnourished, living in unsanitary conditions, and showing signs of psychological abuse. The CPS worker was professional but thorough. She inspected our home, looked through our refrigerator, checked Lucy's room. She spoke with Lucy privately while we waited in agony in the living room. She reviewed Lucy's medical records, showing regular checkups and perfect health. After 3 hours, the worker concluded there were no concerns. Lucy was clearly well cared for, healthy, and loved. The worker noted that Lucy seemed anxious about her aunt, but was otherwise a normal, happy child. She also mentioned this was the third report they'd received about us that week, all from different phone numbers but with suspiciously similar wording. The visit, while ultimately clearing us, devastated Lucy. She didn't understand why a stranger had to check if we were good parents. She asked if she was going to be taken away. No 6-year-old should have those fears. My mother-in-law called that night, hysterical. She discovered my sister-in-law had been stealing from her savings account, small amounts over time, but totaling thousands of dollars. When she confronted her daughter, my SEL had said the money was for Lucy's future legal fund, to save her from her abusers. The next family gathering was for Nathaniel's birthday. We almost didn't go, but he begged us to come, promising my SEL wouldn't be there. She'd been officially uninvited from family events until she got help. We should have known she wouldn't respect that boundary. Nathaniel's birthday party was at a restaurant downtown, one of those places with outdoor seating and string lights. We arrived 15 minutes late because Lucy had insisted on bringing her Lorax plushie, then panicked when she couldn't find it. My husband finally discovered it wedged behind her car seat. The moment we walked onto the patio, I spotted her. My SEL sat at the far end of the table, wearing a new plant-based princess shirt, chatting animatedly with Nathaniel's girlfriend. My husband's hand tightened on mine. Nathaniel rushed over, his face apologetic. She showed up 5 minutes ago. I told her to leave, but Mom, he gestured helplessly at my mother-in-law, who was watching us with pleading eyes. Lucy pressed against my leg, spotting her aunt. Can we go home? Before I could answer, my sister-in-law stood up, waving enthusiastically. Lucy, come give Auntie a hug. The entire table fell silent. Even the waiter froze mid-pour. My husband stepped forward. You're violating the restraining order. Leave now, or we're calling the police. My SEL's face transformed into mock surprise. Restraining order? That silly misunderstanding? Mom said we were past all that. She pulled out her phone, and I saw her thumb hovering over the record button. My mother-in-law stood shakily. I never said. Her voice trailed off as she realized what her daughter had done. Nathaniel's girlfriend, who'd been quietly observing, suddenly spoke up. Actually, she told me you invited her. Said the whole family was ready to reconcile. She looked between us, understanding dawning on her face. She lied to me, didn't she? My SEL's composure cracked. I'm trying to save my niece from a lifetime of cruelty. You're all complicit in. The manager appeared, having noticed the tension. My husband quickly explained the restraining order situation. The manager's expression hardened, and he asked my SEL to leave immediately. She grabbed her purse, knocking over water glasses in the process. This isn't over. Lucy deserves better than parents who feed her tortured animals. She stormed toward the exit, then spun around. I've been documenting everything. My lawyer says, your lawyer? My husband interrupted. The one you're paying with Mom's stolen money? My SEL's face went white. She opened her mouth, closed it, then practically ran from the restaurant. The party continued awkwardly. Lucy barely touched her food, constantly checking over her shoulder. Nathaniel kept apologizing while his girlfriend peppered us with questions about the situation. My mother-in-law sat in stunned silence, processing that her daughter had manipulated her yet again. 3 days later, Lucy's school called during my lunch break. The secretary's voice was carefully neutral. Mrs. Johnson, we have a situation. Someone left a package for Lucy at the front desk. My stomach dropped. Don't let her near it. I'm on my way. I called my husband while speeding to the school. He was in a meeting but said he'd leave immediately. When I arrived, the principal was waiting in the office with a small wrapped box addressed to Lucy in unfamiliar handwriting. We haven't opened it, he said. Given the circumstances, we thought you should be here. The police arrived within minutes. They carefully opened the package to reveal a stuffed cow with a note for Lucy so she can hug the animals instead of eating them, from a friend who cares. The handwriting didn't match my SEL's, but the message was clearly hers. The principal pulled up security footage showing a teenage girl dropping off the package that morning. She told the secretary it was a birthday gift from Lucy's aunt. She's recruiting minors now, the officer muttered, bagging the evidence. That afternoon, our lawyer called with disturbing news. My sister-in-law had been visiting law firms all over town, trying to find someone to take a custody case. She'd been turned down by 6 attorneys already, but she wasn't giving up. She's claiming parental neglect based on nutritional choices, our lawyer explained. No legitimate attorney will touch it, but I'm concerned she might find someone desperate enough to file frivolous motions. The next week brought a new development. Lucy's teacher noticed a woman photographing the playground from across the street during recess. Security confronted her, and she claimed to be a child welfare advocate documenting at-risk children. She had a blog called Saving Tomorrow's Generation, with exactly one post about Lucy. The woman refused to say who'd hired her, but accidentally dropped a receipt from a vegan cafe where my sister-in-law was known to hang out. The school banned her from the property and added her photo to their security watch list. My husband discovered his LinkedIn had been flooded with anonymous messages about his family situation, affecting his professionalism. His company's HR department had received 3 complaints from concerned citizens about employing someone involved in child welfare investigations. His boss called him in, not to reprimand, but to offer support. We've traced the IP addresses. They're all coming from public Wi-Fi at various vegan restaurants. We're documenting everything for your legal case. Lucy's anxiety worsened. She started having accidents at school, something she hadn't done since potty training. Her teacher reported she wouldn't eat lunch, afraid someone was watching and judging her food choices. The school counselor recommended therapy. During our first session, Lucy drew picture after picture of eyes watching her. The therapist, Dr. Patel, was gentle but direct with us afterward. This level of sustained harassment is causing significant psychological damage. Have you considered relocating? The thought had crossed our minds, but running felt like letting her win. Plus, my husband's job and our entire support system were here. We couldn't let my sister-in-law drive us from our home. That weekend, while grocery shopping, Lucy had a meltdown in in the meat department. She saw someone who looked vaguely like her aunt and started screaming. Other shoppers stared as I carried my sobbing daughter out of the store, abandoning our full cart. In the parking lot, I spotted my SIL's car 3 rows over. She wasn't inside, but I recognized the license plate and the herbivore bumper sticker. I called the police while driving home, reporting the restraining order violation. They found her inside the store with a camera, documenting what we'd been buying. She claimed it was a coincidence, that she had every right to shop there too. The officers warned her about maintaining distance, but couldn't prove she'd followed us there. My mother-in-law called that night sobbing. She'd found more money missing, another $2,000. When she'd changed her account passwords, my SEL had shown up at her house screaming about betrayal and threatening to never speak to her again. Maybe that would be for the best, my MIL said quietly. I don't recognize my daughter anymore. The breaking point came when Lucy's best friend's mother called me. I'm so sorry, but we can't have Lucy over for playdates anymore. Your sister-in-law has been messaging me about your family situation, and frankly, we don't want to get involved. 3 other families had received similar messages. My SEL was systematically isolating Lucy from her social circle, all in the name of protecting her. That night, I found my husband in Lucy's room, watching her sleep. We have to end this, he said, whatever it takes. We met with our lawyer the next morning. He'd been building a comprehensive case. Harassment, stalking, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress. The evidence was overwhelming. We can push for criminal charges, he said. With the restraining order violations and the psychological damage to Lucy, she could face jail time. My husband didn't hesitate. Do it. The next 2 weeks were a blur of legal proceedings. My SEL was arrested at her apartment, surrounded by printed photos of Lucy, maps of our daily routes, and notebooks full of evidence against us. The police also found she'd been corresponding with multiple extremist vegan groups, trying to rally support for her cause. At her arraignment, she represented herself, delivering a 20-minute speech about animal rights and parental responsibility. The judge was unmoved, especially after reviewing Lucy's therapy records. Bail was set high, and my mother-in-law, finally at her breaking point, refused to pay it. While my sister-in-law sat in jail awaiting trial, we slowly began rebuilding Lucy's sense of security. The school implemented new protocols. Lucy's therapy sessions continued. We installed a better security system at home, but the damage was deep. Lucy still checked for her aunt everywhere we went. She struggled with food, not eating disorders exactly, but anxiety around meals that hadn't existed before. She'd lost her natural trust in the world. The trial date was set for 3 months out. Our lawyer was confident, the evidence was damning, and my SIL's behavior in jail, preaching veganism to inmates and guards, wasn't helping her case. 2 weeks before the trial, my mother-in-law visited her daughter in jail. She came to our house afterward, looking frail but determined. She's agreed to a plea deal, she said. 2 years probation, mandatory psychiatric treatment, and a permanent restraining order. No contact with Lucy until she's 18, and then only if Lucy initiates it. It wasn't the justice I wanted, but it was protection. My husband and I agreed, mostly for his mother's sake, and to spare Lucy from testifying. The day my SIL signed the plea agreement, Lucy ate a full meal for the first time in months. She still carried her Lorax everywhere, still looked over her shoulder, but something in her relaxed knowing her aunt couldn't come near her. 6 months later, we attended Nathaniel's wedding. Lucy was the flower girl, tossing petals with abandon. She giggled with the other children, ate cake without fear, danced with her cousins. My mother-in-law sat at our table, looking healthier than she had in years. She'd been attending therapy too, processing the guilt and grief of watching her daughter spiral into extremism. She'd also discovered my SEL had been intercepting her mail, stealing checks meant for Lucy's college fund. Any word from her? I asked quietly during the reception. My mother-in-law shook her head. Her therapist says she's making progress, but she still believes she was trying to save Lucy. She's working at an animal shelter now, channeling her passion more appropriately. I watched Lucy spinning on the dance floor, her Lorax slushie abandoned on her chair for the first time in months. She was healing, slowly but surely. We all were. The restraining order paperwork stayed in our important documents folder, a reminder of how quickly family can become a threat. Lucy still saw Dr. Patel monthly. Some nights she still had nightmares about being taken away, but she was eating normally again, playing with friends, being a kid. That was all we'd ever wanted, for her to have a normal childhood, free from adult conflicts and extremist ideologies. As we drove home from the wedding, Lucy asleep in her booster seat, my husband reached over and squeezed my hand. We'd survived. Our family was intact. The price had been high. Strained relationships, legal bills, therapy costs, and a little girl's lost innocence. But we protected our daughter. In the end, that's what mattered.